MLS Aces Podcast, episode 268. This is your host, Tom Sweezy, joined by Jason Vivang in the Chicago Bulls hat, not repping the Fire because they're down 3-0 midweek live as we record. But Jason, outside of the Cucho 23-minute hat trick, how are you doing today?
I'm doing about as good as this game's going.
You're as good as the Chicago Fire back line right now?
Yeah, 2 penalties and a header off, I think, a corner already. It's just complete garbage. It's sad. It's sad.
Look, I'm with you right now, like in the sense of I'm feeling not too hot myself this week, but we go through it, we get through it, we we push through
what they want.
Exactly. We give the people what we want, like Messi starting against Toronto FC midweek. That's what we do out here. And I got MLS references for days for you people too. So we're gonna jump right into it. Jason and I agreed we're gonna keep this a shorter episode. Every single time we say that,
we go an hour and a half.
We go longer. So let's actually stick to it. Let's push through it. Let's go through some stuff. I guess first and foremost, just want to give some love to some contract extensions. SKC signing striker Alan Pulido to a contract extension through the 2026 MLS season, and Inter Miami signing striker Leonardo Campagna to a contract extension through the 2027 season with an option for 2028. I mean, I have my opinions on Alan Pulido, but sure, it's fine. Extend them for a few more seasons. I don't know if you have any scolding hot takes or opinions on two pretty big strikers in Major League Soccer getting some love.
I mean, personally, for Campagna, I think it's a good move. It's a 23-year-old. He's got a decent amount of games already for Miami, and with where they're going now, I feel like trying to do some semblance of consistency with the team is probably the next step here, just in terms of going into next season, going forward into the next couple of years. If they want to win things, they can't just be like flopping players every 2 minutes. So I think it's a good move. I also think he's a solid player. Like, I think it's worth it. I mean, are there better players? Sure. But if you get a 23-year-old who you kind of know what you can get, he can compete in the league, signing him to an extension is a no-brainer. Pulido, I mean, he's 32, I think. Yeah, a little bit older.
I mean, my whole thing on Pulido, and I can touch on Pulido since you just crushed Campagna there. So Pulido, I mean, I personally think the dude's way too injury prone to deserve a DP striker contract. I know that when he plays, he's fantastic, and I'm not denying the dude's quality. And I mean, right now, he sits almost at the top of the MLS scoring leader charts this season because he stayed healthy. Like, he's been a very good striker this year. And I think what is it, 14 goals across all competitions so far in 2023 calendar year. But it's staying consistent and staying consistently on the field that has my concerns for Pulido, especially, at a little bit of an older age for a striker, but he is their club record signing.
I feel like you kind of nailed it there. Like, the DP part of it is the part
tough.
That's like hard to get over, especially because he's 32, especially because, like you said, he's dealt with a decent amount of injuries. Consistency has been a problem in the past. Obviously, this year he's having a great season, but I think the DP tag sort of makes us view it in terms of like this, like he has to be on the field at all times, essentially. He's got to be.
And he does.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, but when you have a league where the roster rule is you get 3 players that you can pay as much money as you want, and they're supposed to supposedly be your star players. Sporting Kansas City are rocking with Alan Pulido, Johnny Russell, and Gadi Kinda. 2 of them injury-prone players. Johnny Russell, I think we started to see the end-of-year slow decline.
We're a big Johnny Russell pod.
We love Johnny, and I love Johnny. Don't get me wrong, but I think that between the end of last year and I think this season, we're seeing a slower Johnny Russell. We're seeing a little bit of an older Johnny Russell. So it just, to me, it's just Peter Vermees continuing to not set his team up for success in the league. And sorry to the SKC folks out there, but that's just my opinion. Some people think I'm crazy for my Alan Pulido take, but whatever. It is what it is.
Hey, they're 10th
So
right now in a pretty weak conference this year. So
yes, I
it's not
mean
a
they
great.
could make the playoffs, and that's fine. But they just have such like a
But I feel like Pulido this year is having like one of his better seasons, like scoring
yes, he's
wise.
having his
And
best
they're
season for
still 10th.
SKC
So
for sure.
clearly it's not like a like if your DP striker is having one of his best seasons, you should be in the playoffs at minimum.
Yeah. Yeah. Hey, I mean, look, we can get into the deeper issues of sporting Kansas City. I'm sure we'll have plenty of time to get into why SKC aren't winning games. Let's keep it going. Seattle Sounders did make some news this week, according to at Rave Green TV on Twitter or X. I don't know what we're calling it still, whatever.
I still
But
call it Twitter.
to me, it's always Twitter. But the Seattle Sounders are set to announce a new logo change slash kind of rebrand on September 26th for 2024 moving forward. I don't think the Seattle Sounders name is changing. That is set in stone, pretty sure of like they're always going to be the Seattle Sounders for at least I guess right now. It is just going to be a change of logo and I guess branding that comes along with that. I mean, you did create a logo, a
I'm a logo guy.
pretty notable one up in the top right hand corner if you're watching this on YouTube. But I guess what's your take on this? Because personally, for me, and I just asked you a question, but I'll answer it first. I like the Seattle Sounders logo. I think if we're talking MLS logos, it's up there at this point historically with like the LA Galaxy logo being arguably like the second most notable in Major
Like
League Soccer at this
recognizable.
point. Yeah, exactly. Especially on a global standpoint, right? So, I don't want to see a change in the logo, and personally, I do kind of like it, even though it is one of the older logos in the league. But I don't know. What's your take on it?
So I did a little more digging on this once I saw that they were doing it because I was just interested. I mean, like you're saying, Seattle's got history. They've got this logo that people kind of attribute with winning, and everyone, like you said, on a global scale, people probably know the Seattle logo. So I was kind of surprised. I really hope they're not going to just do some cookie cutter MLS logo, which would be a shame. I'm glad. Like I agree. It looks to me like they are keeping the Seattle Sounder name, which I mean, if they were changing that, it would be a massive. I don't think people would be very happy. But the one thing I did find was like a report, like a whole presentation that they did that kind of outlined everything that they have been doing to get to this new logo that they're going to unveil. Unveil, I guess
Okay.
is the right word.
Yeah.
And it had like all this content about how they talked with players. They talked with, past, present players. They've talked with their supporters groups, their fans. They've done like town hall type meetings over it. So I feel like there's a good amount of Seattle fans and supporters groups who've been able to weigh in on this. They even had like stats on like what is your favorite, feature of Seattle? Is it the Space Needle? Is it, the coast or whatever? Because the Sounders, I think, is based off of the water.
Yeah,
It's
the
like
sound.
a body of water. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. So it's like all of that stuff. Like, what do you want to see in the logo? What features? What colors? And it sounded to me like they're keeping the colors. This like they have like special words for it, but basically like blue and green.
Rave green.
Yeah, it's rave green, and I forget what the blue was. It was like
The blue something else. Yeah.
Yeah, but I mean, after reading kind of briefly through that and seeing how they've approached this, I'm more confident that it will be more of like just a facelift of their old logo. Which honestly, like you said, you like the old logo. I do too because it's like it reminds me of like old MLS, which
Fair.
I think we probably care more about than most people.
It's why I like the old Revs logo compared to the new Revs logo. Like you said, I
well,
think
it's the
it's
same
just
thing. Yeah,
it's
I
sentimental
even
to
liked the old Montreal logo, even though it was kind of funny, but I liked it. The old Fire logo is probably still my favorite one.
I don't know. I do like the new Fire logo. I'm not gonna lie
The
to you.
new Fire logo is pretty.
Yeah,
Cool,
not the
say.
middle
They,
new one.
they did a good job with the current logo. But like my point is, we kind of get attached to these older logos, and we probably do more so than others. But overall,
Yeah.
like it seems to me like they're going to do a good job. I said a lot about a logo change that we don't even know
No,
and speculating, but I'm excited. I want to see what they do.
that's why I wanted to ask you. And my follow-up question for you, and I didn't write this in the notes, so I'll give you a second to think about it and I'll give you my answer, is if what logo currently in Major League Soccer would you be like, I'd love this team to revamp it? For me, I was looking through it a little bit before. I feel like it's Philly. If it's any club that like I would like to see a little bit of a revamp. Not that I think the Philly logo is bad, but it does stand out to me as a little bit of an older one compared to maybe some of the rest. I think there's potentially one or two out in the West that I would change, but I don't want to take a pick from you. So
I like Philly's logo, but I see where you're at with that. I think if I were to choose, it would probably be Kansas City.
ooh,
Sporting.
okay.
I just feel like it's. I mean, there's probably a reason for why they did all this that I just don't know. But
I say bring back the Wiz. I mean, that's my thinking with
yeah,
Kansas City.
easily that would be sweet. But yeah, I'm just not a huge fan of that logo. It just feels really bland up against some of the newer logos that we've seen. Like I really like Nashville's. I like.
Yeah.
I actually like the new Revs logo, even though we lost the old one, which I think a lot of people were attached to the Grand logo. If I were to say one more, it'd probably be Colorado, but I think that also is partially because I think that rebranding the whole team might help them do better.
I was gonna say, and again, this is coming from an NYCFC fan, but I was gonna say if I could absolutely destroy one logo, build it up into something new, it would be the Red Bulls logo. I hate the
It's just
whole
generic. It's just generic
like
Red Bulls stuff.
when you look at Salzburg, Leipzig, New York, and then the one in Brazil as well. Like just give me something fresh for each club. Like give me something a little bit different.
They could still keep that consistency of Red Bull.
Yeah.
But without doing the exact same logo with like
Give
a
me
word changed.
Yeah, like I don't know, just make it like keep the same Red Bull literally that's on the logo and like put it in front of like something that represents like that city. And I think it would just be so much of a better like
Well,
look.
because right
in
now
all
you put them all
honesty.
next to each other and you're like, oh, just like the same logo, except for like a tiny change.
100%, 100%. Some breaking news as we record this live. In the first half of Inter Miami versus Toronto FC, both Jordi Alba and Lionel Messi have come off before the half, both looking like injuries. So,
oh no,
sorry to the hopes of Inter Miami fans, but
their
it
hopes
looks
were
like
crushed after they got smashed.
It looks like the Alba one was a little bit more serious from reports that I'm reading, to be honest. And Messi kind of was just grabbing at his leg and then subbed off. So we'll see what happens with that.
Well,
they're facing the only team that's lower than them on the table right now. Miami needs wins. They need points. 3 points would get them back into the playoff picture very nicely. And so that's that. We won't talk too much Miami on this episode today. Let's move forward, and I want to talk to you about an MLS rule that was potentially broken this week. Wasn't broken. We found that at the end of the day. It's less about the story and more about, I think, the conversation of very old MLS rules that don't really apply anymore to the current landscape that we're in. But American goalkeeper Josh Cohen has filed a complaint against Atlanta United for violating MLS rules. Cohen, who's currently without a club, has alleged that Atlanta United violated MLS rules while attempting to sign him this past window. In Major League Soccer, unattached players have to sign to MLS clubs via the discovery process. Pretty much each MLS team maintains a list of up to 7 players that they have priority rights to when signing them over any other MLS clubs. Teams can negotiate with that player a deal or trade that player's rights to another club, typically for about $50K in general allocation money. Those are the fun tweets we constantly see when MLS clubs trade in that way. So Cohen is on Atlanta United's discovery list and had negotiations this summer to sign with the club. Major League Soccer clubs, if they were interested in getting Cohen, must step back first. When during this free agency signing period, when a player's on a discovery list, MLS clubs must make a quote unquote reasonable offer to keep them on that list. If not, other MLS clubs can do that 50K GAM trade to get the player. Cohen representatives state that Atlanta's offer was well below market value, so not that quote unquote reasonable offer. And we did get follow-up later on today as from tweets from Tom Bogert and The Athletic that the offer was to be an Atlanta United 2 offer on their MLS Next Pro roster. And an MLS spokesperson told Bogert and The Athletic that there was no breaking of the discovery rights rule. So this is a long explanation of some stuff and some drama that happened in Major League Soccer. But for me, it is that rules like this, we have them. We have GAM, we have discovery rights, we have all this stuff, are just so outdated for where the current state of Major League Soccer is. I understand that we have special rules in order to protect clubs, players, owners, whatever it may be. But a rule like this, like Josh Cohen, free agent American, it was not discovered by Atlanta United. He was playing in Sacramento in the USL way before Atlanta United was a club. I think someone who was arguably one of the best American goalkeepers, who was playing at the top Israeli Premier League club, playing in Champions League last season, should have an opportunity to sign with whatever MLS club he wants to, avoiding this whole discovery rights deal. I mean, that was a very long-winded story and answer here, but I don't know if you have any thoughts on the discovery rights process and rules such as this that maybe are a little antiquated.
Yeah, I mean, I think I'm just been full of green. Like, I don't have a ton to say because you kind of nailed it. They're just old rules. I feel like MLS is sort of right on the precipice of changing a lot of these rules. So hopefully that's one that kind of does get changed because discovery rights are they're not really needed anymore. It's just unnecessary. I feel like there's a lot of rules that if we really wanted to do a whole episode on it, we probably could.
100%.
Could change or could go away because of the current place MLS is at is just way past some of these rules. But yeah, I mean, in my opinion, it seems like we might get some rule changes in the future, hopefully, but we'll see. I mean, that's all I really have to say. I don't really have a hot take, but it seems like when I read this story, I was like, oh, it seems like a non-issue, and then it was a non-issue.
To me, it just seems like this could be a situation that could potentially push, like you said, a rule change sooner rather than later.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, we've talked about this before, and I think pundits have talked about it as well, where it's like Messi's arrival to MLS is going to bring MLS to a new area, I guess, or a new stage of its history. And I think rules like this, and we'll see what happens probably this upcoming off season and such like that will change. But it's a large point to bring up that we'll hopefully see some change to MLS roster rules soon enough. Let's quickly go through some of these signings and injuries. I just wanted to mention for the fans of these teams out there, some injuries to key players probably going to be gone for the rest of the season. We probably won't see them till 2024. DC United lose starting goalkeeper Tyler Miller. LA Galaxy lose right back Lucas Caligari for the rest of the season. He was on loan from Fluminense, so we'll see if he's ever going to return to the club. Reports that I've had and conversations that I've had is that the club did like him, but it's a shitty situation for the most part. FC Dallas lose right back Giovanni Jesus, and Portland Timbers lose star D-mid Diego Chara for the rest of the regular season at least. Of all those players, Chara is most likely to make a return if the Timbers can pull off this great run that they're on and make the playoffs.
It's going to be a lot harder without him.
Yeah, literally, it's going to be Christian Paredes going to be doing a lot of running around.
I read these moves and I was like, well, it seems like none of these teams, like these are all pretty brutal moves or pretty brutal injuries.
It's almost like eliminating-esque moves, right? Like the Galaxy dealing with another long-term injury after.
But it's like their 5th injury or something.
Chicharito, Brugman, now Caligari, Caceres, like right, like it's a lot of players injured for them. Dallas losing, a very good right back. I think year 1 for him in Major League Soccer. Portland making their run. Okay, Diego Chara is gone. Tyler Miller, DC's kind of on that borderline in the East. Now you're down to some backup options there, right? So it gets a little tough with injuries, obviously this time of year, but so is the game of soccer. Let's move forward, I guess, with some roster moves here. So Vancouver Whitecaps, they made 2 moves this past week. One, they transferred DP striker Sergio Cordova to Turkish Super League side Allianzspor. And then in, I guess, for a flip of that, they decided to bring in a forward who was a free agent. So this move was totally legal. Just going to throw that out there for talking MLS rules. They had to be a free agent prior to the MLS transfer deadline date, but they were able to sign Canadian men's national team veteran attacker Junior Hoylett as a free agent. So he's 33. You bring him in as a backup kind of attacking depth piece option. You get rid of Cordova, who in my opinion has been a lackluster striker in Vancouver.
You can say he's been bad.
Yeah, okay. He's been pretty bad. He's been pretty bad. I mean, I never even when he signed with Vancouver this offseason, it wasn't like directly from RSL, because I remember like he was on loan at RSL last year or whatever, but it was just like I never even thought he was that good at RSL last year. Now Vancouver's like, we're giving him a DP contract. Really didn't make sense to me.
I mean, what I love about this, though, is they realize it's not working, and he's gone within almost a full season, but less than a full season. Like, that decision-making is really important for any club. I really like what Vancouver's been doing this season. You know me, Takaoka fan club, number 1 member. But
how about the best striker in MLS? The best true striker in MLS this season might arguably be Brian White. And that's not a joke. That's 100% a fair statement. Like Giamakis, fine. Like he's been very good. I'm not going to deny it. Alan Pulido, like we mentioned before, is having his best season ever. But Brian White, man, like 11 goals and 4 assists. He's scored more than Benteke, Jesus Ferrara, Cucho. Like he's a baller. I'm a big Brian White dude. And
Vancouver is a force now.
Hey, Vancouver's sitting, what are they, 4th?
Well,
obviously, so just to let everyone know, we're recording during Wednesday night's game, so some things may change by the time this episode drops, so apologies about that. But, yeah, I mean, Vancouver's sitting in 4th with every possibility of finishing, I guess first, right? But I would say, like, 2nd place is probably a very realistic finish for the Vancouver Whitecaps if things.
Vancouver finishing 2nd would be incredible.
Bro, so my nerdy MLS ass wrote out the schedule for every single team game for the rest of the year. And I just was like, yep, I think that's a win, that's a loss, that's a win, that's a loss, that's a draw, whatever. And it came out to, by the time I was done with it, that I had Houston finishing in 2nd place in the Western Conference, and that blew my mind. So we'll see what happens. We'll see what happens.
Houston. Couldn't have been more wrong.
Not literally.
Say it every week.
Literally. We finished up last week's episode by mentioning kind of a funny story of Mako Mijelovic from CF Montreal not being happy with his minutes at CF Montreal, so he joined an amateur Quebec soccer league under a fake name. Scored 6 goals, and then this is all alleged reporting, right? He allegedly scored 6 goals and then was frustrated and got punched another player in the face and got a lifetime suspension from that league. Well, Major League Soccer announced this week that they're terminating the contract of the 22-year-old attacker Mijelovic from CF Montreal after these reports, and an investigation is still going on into this, but Major League Soccer decided to step in and I guess terminate all all contracts there. So, an unsuccessful run for the young American attacker.
One of the wilder stories in MLS that I can remember recently.
Bro, it's that story is fantastic. I still just there's
That's like
the
a
image,
trivia story.
there's the image of his like league shot from that amateur Quebec soccer league going around Twitter.
Mhm.
And if you haven't seen it, like you need to go on Twitter right now. You need to search his name, and like it's so like that dude's a professional soccer player in Major League Soccer, and he's just like, yep, no one's gonna notice this, especially in the Quebec Montreal area. That's fine, but whatever. All right. This next story, the next few stories, I actually want to hear your take on. So, U.S. Soccer announces that they're moving their headquarters and national training center away from Chicago and now to Atlanta. Atlanta United owner and also owner of the Atlanta Falcons and a few other things down in Atlanta, Arthur Blank, has pledged $50 million to build a state-of-the-art training facility and headquarters, investing millions into youth, the women's game, and hoping to extend soccer into wider efforts across the United States. Jason, I mean, I don't know if you can speak to the impact of what like the U.S. Soccer HQ being in Chicago meant, if it meant anything, and what it's going to look like moving away to Atlanta United, to Atlanta.
I would say the only thing that it really meant was just, like, I'm kind of bummed about it because it was just a fun thing for me to be able to tell people, like, yeah, this is actually the headquarters of U.S. Soccer. Like, I always just enjoyed that little fact. But outside of that, like, it kind of makes sense. Like, I never understood why it really was in Chicago. I always like hoped that it would mean that like our team would be better, but it never actually translated. Like, no one cared.
Wasn't it some random old house?
Yeah,
like,
it was. Well, for a while, it was like a random house.
Okay.
But I think they moved like a couple years ago. But yeah, it's like some super nice house, like on the lake. It was.
Now I'm happy, at least, hopefully this is like state of the art, where I think we have like, I was reading it's like 26 or 27 national teams that are going to be able to train and operate out of there. I don't know. If we're going to be happy about millionaires for a second, I'm happy Arthur Blank's our millionaire, and he can throw some money into hopefully having all of the U.S. national teams do a little bit better, right? Yeah, so I mean that's pretty big news that this city's changing. I don't know what it's going to impact as of right now, current day in 2023, but it is what it is. It's
like having like a big central training area is a good thing. Like,
I also think it being, I don't know how much this is going to change it, but it being in somewhat of a warmer state compared to Chicago might be better. I'm sure a lot of the stuff is indoors, but I think maybe having some outdoor fields pretty much year round might be a benefit too.
I always wished like we would get more national team games because of it, and it didn't seem to translate. So
yeah, and I always feel like too, like Chicago Fire would have some type of more like popularity pull because of it. I don't know if this is going to impact anything for Atlanta United. It might. It may. Maybe some more national teamers would choose Atlanta. I don't know.
I don't know. I don't think it will. I think that's like, having the U.S. Soccer Federation headquartered in the same place as, a certain MLS team, like, that'll be a boost. But in reality, like, U.S. Soccer probably tries to stay super impartial about MLS in that sense. So I feel like
you're partial until Arthur Blank's writing checks. Okay,
that's a good point. Yeah, if he's building it, they will come.
I mean, that's the one thing is like, with the city of Chicago, I don't know how much the front office and owners of the Fire and like U.S. Soccer were really getting buddy. I can see Arthur Blank, who's a very well-known businessman, trying to get as buddy as he can with the heads of U.S. Soccer. I think that might be a beneficial deal for him. But, I guess we'll see what happens with Atlanta United stock as soon as U.S. Soccer moves into town. This is one that I find you might find a little interesting. NWSL, they announced a new club starting in the 2026 season. The return of the NWSL to the city of Boston as the league's 15th club. So it was the Boston Breakers, right, that went extinct or defunct, right? That's the word. And now they're back. I saw the colors, green and white, going with the Celtics a little bit. I mean, what are your thoughts?
I mean, so in total, like, so currently we're at 12, right? But the Utah Royals are returning next year in 2024, along with Bay FC, which will be in San Jose/San Francisco area. Hence Bay FC. They've got a pretty nice branding so far. I'm all for it. Like, I think they need to continue expanding. Like, 15 is a good number. 16, in my mind, currently would be ideal for if they could get one more city to come along. What is Boston starting in 2026?
2026.
Yeah, so if they got one more and you made 2 conferences of 8, I think that is what I would prefer, because currently just having it without conferences feels a bit weird. But they're working. They're working towards this. And it's just kind of showing the growth in how it's growing, which is totally a good thing. That the more expansion teams, the more room for players, the more room for competition, and it just elevates the whole sport in general. So,
is there a city that you would like to see get announced next? I mean, there's a lot of California teams. I feel like, or we've had
there's
a lot
of ton in California. There's 4? No, 2.
What is it?
3? There'll be 3.
Yeah, it's going to be 3 with the San Francisco team coming to town.
Yeah.
I mean, like, I look at like the MLS markets that do well, right? And I would assume, hopefully, that would translate over into the same market for the women's game. I would like to see like a Nashville or Cincinnati. Like, give me a little Midwest love, you know?
Well, that's also like a area that doesn't feel like it has any teams. So I was thinking Cincinnati when you said that as well. I think Atlanta would be a good one.
Now that the headquarters is going down there,
it's not because of the headquarters, but like, look at how many people Atlanta get to their games. Like, they care. Yes. I think Atlanta is. If I were to pick one city, it would probably be one of the 3 we just mentioned. But I think I would lean towards Atlanta being the city, because I just feel like it's bound to take off there.
I mean, I'm just saying the headquarters going down there. Arthur Blank.
Atlanta's a cool city too. Like, I would go down to Atlanta for a game.
That sounds like a good time, and another new club popping up, or I guess getting more of an identity, is some some MLS Next Pro news. We have a brand new independent MLS Next Pro side that just announced their brand name, whatever you want to call it, Carolina Core FC. They will be next season the only independent club in MLS. Jesus, this is what sick brain is right now.
It's been a long day.
They will be the only independent club in MLS Next Pro after the departure of Rochester, New York FC this past offseason. This club is being led by MLS legend Eddie Pope as their chief sporting director. Will play at a 5,000 capacity stadium of Truist Point Stadium in High Point, North Carolina. They had 600 people attend the club announcement this past week for the new name, logo, colors, and everything like that. I don't know if you got a chance to see the logo, but I love the fox in the mountain. It's like, that's pretty like
I'm gonna look
spot on. Love like lower division soccer
Carolina
logo type of thing right there. And I mean,
you know us, we love lower division soccer logos.
we love soccer logos, period. We're a podcast that talks about something very visual, right? That's always super successful.
That's an incredible logo.
That's good, right?
Are they selling jerseys?
Not yet. So Carolina Core FC, hopefully they're more successful than Rochester, New York FC as far as independent clubs joining the MLS lower division side, but we'll see. I think 600 people.
I kind of like where they're located, so I just pulled it up on the maps just because I was like, where's High Point, North Carolina?
Yeah, it's near Charlotte, I think.
It's near Greensboro. I don't know.
Greensboro.
Yeah, Greensboro, but it's like, basically it looks like it's about an hour and a half from Charlotte and also an hour and a half from like Raleigh, Durham. So it seems like there could be a decent amount of people going from all areas to that game. Like, it's a small team in like a central state location where it seems like it could be easy access. But I always felt like a team, like maybe I'm wrong because, North Carolina and Duke are both in Raleigh, Durham area.
Yeah.
So it might be harder to grow like a independent soccer club when you have two college towns. But I always felt like a team in those in that area would be awesome.
No, Raleigh Durham's blowing up into a pretty popular city, right? And the Carolinas are just great for sports, one, and then great for soccer too, as we've seen with Charlotte FC. Right? So it's like I think this could be very successful. Like I just said, I hope I could put the trust into Eddie Pope and into a new independent club to have some success in the lower divisions. All right, 35 minutes in, we are flying through this, and this is feeling pretty good because my head's getting a little messy right now at this point. So
we'll burn through these easy.
100%. Let's talk a little bit about last weekend, even though by the time this drops, there's going to be some midweek action that's already happened. But we could tie it into what we're seeing going on tonight as well. So I think first things first, I do want to talk about the monster wins we saw from LAFC and Atlanta United this past weekend. LAFC having the big 4-2 win in the El Tráfico rivalry game over the LA Galaxy, and Atlanta United, like you referenced to before, Jason, absolutely demolishing Inter Miami that were without Lionel Messi and Jordi Alba. And now, once again, right now, this midweek, they have to play a half and a little bit more without Lionel Messi and Jordi Alba. They are up 1-0. Yes, Facundo Farias scored once again, so he's proving to be pretty damn well. Good signing for them as well.
So, I mean, they should beat Toronto. Like, let's be honest, they're a better team than Toronto.
Toronto is like the second worst team in Major League Soccer, probably in my opinion at this point. So
third, but no, they're second worst.
Chicago. I forgot about Chicago. Yeah.
Whoa!
I forgot about that.
Catching strays.
So
you have more points than Miami.
You have more points than a lot of teams, but I think to me these were two kind of statement wins because we were seeing some lackluster performances from LAFC. We were seeing Atlanta United kind of to me, they're on this bubble of are they MLS Cup contenders or are they the best of the rest type of deal? And I think with wins like this, it almost secured their spots of to me in the West, okay, LAFC, they're back, they're contenders in the Western Conference again, and Atlanta United, I think they can play up a class, up a level with the Cincinnatis, the Orlandos of the Eastern Conference. I don't know. What are your thoughts? Am I getting too excited about these teams?
I think Atlanta United's definitely started to figure some stuff out. I don't know if I would. I think I agree. I don't think I would put them in that contenders. You know how you group teams or whatever. Could they win? Sure, anyone could win. But would I put them in Group A? No. Probably put them top of Group B in terms of who can compete for MLS Cup. LAFC needed this kind of game because I feel like we talked about them a lot, and then they started to really tail off there after Champions League, kind of all that stuff. They kind of took a nosedive a little bit there. It was a little sketchy.
Oh, they got the Champions League curse, but it just so happens to be after playing in the final.
Yeah. So, I mean, I think these are both big wins. I totally agree.
No,
and I mean, Atlanta had to win that game, right? there's no way they're not winning over a Messi-less, Alba-less.
Yeah, look, if Atlanta lose that game full strength and Miami doesn't have two of their big three stars that they signed this,
then we're talking very differently.
Yeah, I'm not considering Atlanta anywhere close to MLS Cup contenders. And for LAFC side of things, right, Dennis Bouanga, he's been somewhat quiet since I think his super hot start to the season and kind of leading into the beginning of summer as well. And, he got the brace in the 4-2 win. Now he's atop the Golden Boot charts once again. So that Golden Boot race is on, and Dennis Bouanga is atop it right now. So it's going to be interesting to see. I think these are two very interesting clubs to keep an eye on. And I mean, as of right now in today's midweek action, I think Atlanta is doing something, right? Yeah, they're beating DC United 1-0 right now in the 52nd minute. So, Atlanta United, I think, keeping the pedal on gas right now, which is all good things. You know, I guess we can tie it into present day as well. And I said we weren't going to talk too much Miami, but no Messi, no Alba, big problems for Inter Miami. I mean, I think it's a pretty fair, easy answer of saying yes. But what are your thoughts?
I mean, not having them is an issue, and the fact that both of them came off with potential injuries in this is not good. I feel like, I mean, I didn't see them. I don't know, you saw them, right? But
no, sorry, I do not have the games up right now. I'm gonna.
Yeah, I only have the Fire game on, and I'm disappointed in it. So I glanced over, but I didn't see the injuries. So hopefully they're not too bad. But yeah, without Messi and Alba, I think they're in a pretty big hole. Could they make the playoffs still? Like, I don't know if we should have this conversation every week, but we're getting close. So, like, they're really not that far. Like, the bar to make the playoffs in MLS, and just in the Eastern Conference right now alone, there's a lot of teams that are right on the edge. Like, so when I was looking at the games, a couple weeks ago when we were discussing it, I was like, it's going to be tough. Like, they have a really hard schedule. They still have a hard schedule, but I think it gets easier from here. I don't have it pulled up, but I know they play us and Charlotte twice, and there's probably only like 4 games left. And I think one of those is against you guys.
And this one, right here.
Yeah, so that's 4 wins. 3.
Yeah, I mean,
that should be 3 wins.
Honestly, yes.
Like, they might lose in Charlotte, but I think they should beat us. They should probably beat you guys.
Yes.
They should probably win at home for Charlotte,
and then you had Toronto tonight,
which they're already up on. So if they pull this win off, I'd say if they lose tonight, I'd be concerned. But
yes, and I don't want to harp on Miami every single week. I get it; people want to hear about it, so I do want to talk about it because it is important, right? It's
also
big.
like it's a storyline that's towards the end of the season that's worth thinking about. Because if they make the playoffs in their full strength, they could beat anyone.
It's going to be interesting to see how long Alba and Messi are potentially out for, if these are long sustaining injuries, because you have a second half against Toronto. You have a weekend match against Orlando at Orlando. And then next Wednesday, you have the U.S. Open Cup final against Houston. You have.
He doesn't play at That's tough, man. Like, they kind of have to win versus Orlando, but then you have the final.
Look, you have to. I think first and foremost, you have to see the seriousness, the severity of the injuries to Alba and Messi. If it's like, they just need 1 game off, okay, fine. Maybe you suck it up. You don't play them against Orlando, and then you go try to win the final and then hope that
win
you
the
guys
final 4 games or whatever. But then if they win the final, then they play. I'm pretty sure it's NYCFC first after that, right?
It's not like we haven't shit the bed against. Yes, it's a Saturday game against NYCFC.
Yeah, and then they play the Fire on a Wednesday. So they have 6 more games, 5 more games, 5 more games in like 3.5 weeks.
Look, this is though the case that a lot of MLS teams right now are facing, especially with the
they're not unique here. Everyone's deal with it.
Everyone's playing midweek weekend, especially after the League's Cup month off, right? The condensed schedule is the end of the season. We knew this was going to be a thing, and it just so happens that we didn't know to start the season that Messi was coming to Miami. Like that. That's what it.
The thing that's different is, like, these are all very much must-win games for Miami, and they have like a microscope on them. So it's a little bit more pressure.
100%. 100%. I don't want to. Done with the Miami talk for right now. It sucks. Hopefully, Miami, Messi,
NYCFC, New York Red Bulls, both shouldn't make the playoffs. Both don't deserve it. Spoken from someone who also doesn't deserve it. So. We can skip that one.
Thank you for the transition there. But yes, coming from an NYCFC fan as well, after a rough 0-0 draw in the Hudson River Derby, that was a bad game. Like, that game was absolutely just awful to watch. I don't think that either New York club, who are pretty much staples of the MLS Cup playoff should make the playoffs. So I'll speak for both New York clubs there. We did, like I did mention before, Galaxy losing in El Tráfico. Austin FC dropped one late to the Portland Timbers.
I said that game was a good game.
You did say it. You did say it. Do you think that the Galaxy or Austin have any hopes in playoff runs as well either, or are they in the NYCFC Red Bull bucket right now?
I don't think Galaxy should or Austin really deserve it. I think if the Galaxy lose tonight to Minnesota, which I would probably pick Minnesota in this contest, even though it's in California. But if they lose that, I would say there's no shot they make the playoffs.
I think the Galaxy have a better shot than
Austin,
just because I think the Galaxy actually aren't playing that bad of soccer. But like we mentioned before, 4 pretty serious season-long injuries kind of have shot this season in the stomach a little bit here. But I don't think either make the playoffs.
Both teams just need a lot of results outside of their own. Like they need to get results,
Agreed.
But they also need other teams. Like Agreed. It's the same I felt with the Fire all year pretty much. Like we've been right along that line, kind of up and down. We've been in, we've been out, we got one foot in. But at the end of the day, like we're at the point where we really need help. Like our form is just abysmal right now. Like loss, draw, loss. Like we are bad.
I didn't initially throw you guys in this bucket with LA and Austin just because this was more focused. When I wrote out the notes, more focused. That was more focused on the weekend's games when I wrote out these notes. Yeah. But now that we're looking at it's 3-0 in the 51st minute on the midweek games, I would throw the Chicago Fire. And
we have New England on the weekend. Then we have Miami.
Yeah.
Like in New England, like we talked about them a lot last week. I'm starting to feel like they'll be okay. I don't know. Their team's still really good. It seems like
the talent's still there.
Like brushed over. Like at first I was like, oh, sky's falling. Like, are they even going to compete? But to be honest, like it might do the opposite. Like it might make them compete more to be like, F you guys.
100%. It could be. It's going to be how the players respond, right? And I mean, New England, I'm pretty sure they lost. Yeah, they lost out on the road in Colorado. I mean,
not where you want to be losing.
Lost to Colorado's not great, but you are going pretty much across the country. So it's like, it's tough. We'll see how New England reacts, I think, in these next few games. So, the Chicago, I can throw them in that bucket now, too. I'd even throw DC in that bucket as well at this point.
DC, I think, has got a better chance than Chicago. I think, honestly, Charlotte should be that 9th team.
I think Charlotte's the best. If we're talking DC, Chicago,
NYCFC.
If we're talking the Eastern Conference teams that are not in the playoffs currently, or even if you want to include Montreal and DC for that playoff, for the play-in game as well, so 8 and down. I think the best 2 teams right now are probably Charlotte and Miami.
I think, I would 100% agree. I think those last 2 games of the season are going to be super interesting because of what could possibly be in this scenario.
100%. And 2 teams who are, I think, making their runs at the right time are the Portland Timbers and Sporting Kansas City, 2 teams who we've mentioned a few times on this podcast. Sporting Kansas City, locking up Alan Pulido for the next few years. Portland Timbers, unfortunately, losing Diego Chara for the rest of the regular season, but they both win. Timbers defeated Austin FC 2-1 on the road this past weekend. Sporting Kansas City take down a very hot Minnesota United side 1-0 with an 84th minute game winner on the road this past weekend. So some road wins from teams on that Western Conference bubble. Really doing the damn thing and getting the job done late in the season. So I guess we can kind of keep it similar conversation-wise. The teams if you want to look currently, Western Conference teams that are 8 and down, right? The playoff game and down, what teams have your interest? I think if I had to go, I would say obviously Western Conference is much closer than the Eastern Conference, above it as well. But I would say Minnesota and Portland probably deserve the 8 and 9 spots, and even that's Portland with a god-awful start to their season.
I mean, I hate to agree with you, but I am going to. I think without Chara, though, it's going to be tough. But if you look at just tonight's games, which is Kansas City versus Nashville, which is in the 20th minute, it's currently 0-0, and Portland, San Jose, both are tough games. But if you look at their weekend games, you have Portland versus Colorado, very winnable, right? Should be a win. And Kansas City versus Houston, which is a much more difficult game. And I'm not looking further out than that because my computer's gonna explode if I try to
keep it this week. That's fine. Keep it this week.
Just from that window alone, aren't they currently tied on points? Yeah, they're tied on points. I think Minnesota's just better than both of them.
100%.
But I think Portland deserves that last spot over Kansas City. And then going below that, I think we've kind of established that Austin and LA aren't. I guess Dallas would be the only other one that's considerable.
Dallas is so tough because of injuries. Like Alan Velasco's out injured again. Bernard Camun goes out. The Legets continue to be out for most of the season. I do think Dallas is a really good side. I just think injuries have kind of put their season into the mud too as well, to be honest. I guess let's quickly finish up with the conversation about a team that's very quickly rising up power rankings and I think teams that opponents don't want to face. That's Orlando City. And I don't know if I thought to start the season we'd be here, but Orlando City completed a huge comeback victory.
Of the year, so
obviously. But they completed a huge comeback victory this past weekend against the Columbus Crew. Shocker, the Crew continuing things from last season and dropping wins late. But they enter the 50-point club in Major League Soccer with the win getting at 50-point marks. Joining FC Cincinnati is the only other 50-point team or more at this point of the season. Martin Ojeda with a goal and an assist. Ramiro Enrique with 2 goals. He had the game-winning goal in stoppage time. And then Facundo Torres with a goal and an assist as well. I mean, if I'm a club in Major League Soccer, and I'm saying this as of right now, NYCFC is beating Orlando 1-0. But if I'm a club in Major League Soccer, I don't want to play Orlando City.
No.
I think they're well coached. I think they have killer attack across multiple fronts, and I think defensively they're pretty stout.
I mean, defensively they've been incredible in the last 10 games. Go look at their last 10 matches or so. They've conceded 1 or less goal in 8 of them.
Yeah.
I'm saying, like you said, we're saying this while they're down to NYCFC 1-0, which is just brutal to try and gas up a team while they're losing to your team.
It's just typical MLS at this point,
But, I mean, I am full agreed. This team is clicking at the right time. It's just weird to say this right now. But I think they're going to be a force. I think they're going to be a tough out in the playoffs. Like you said, they're the second team on 50 points. Plus 10 goal differential is it's fine. But, they just don't allow a ton of goals, and they haven't been recently, and they have a goalkeeper of the year,
So sorry to everyone listening to the podcast. I just smacked my mic.
No one heard it.
No one heard that. But I honestly, the thing that scares me about this team is I feel like the attack is so young. I feel like between Duncan McGuire, Enrique, Facundo Torres, Ivan Angulo,
all those guys are just so good too, and they can play together.
And Martin Ojeda, who I think, I don't know, he was a stud in South America before coming to Orlando City this offseason. He comes off the bench for them. That's just how good things are. And now Cesar Araujo is turning into one of the best D-mids in the league. It's incredible how this entire team is really kind of, I feel formed around the 2 veterans of the group, and Pedro Gaese and net, as well as Mauricio Pereira, who's either playing the 10 or he's dropping back and playing next to Cesar Araujo, right? But it's 2 veterans that I think are doing a great job in leading a very young team that has so much talent. I think you have to consider Orlando just as much of an MLS Cup, candidates at this point compared to Cincinnati or a St. Louis or whatever.
Yeah, and I would just add Pereira's got them they're a really well coached team.
If I'm not mistaken, I think this came from Tom Bogert. This isn't official or anything. I can't confirm this, but I don't think Oscar Perea and his staff are under contract for next season.
That's interesting.
That would be wild if Orlando City can do some
Wins MLS Cup
and then the coach and the coaching staff is gone and everything like that. Yeah, it would be.
Well, the Fire need a coach.
Hey, bro, Pereira's the man. I love him. I love El Profe, the professor of soccer. I love him. I don't know. Let's finish up this episode. Like, we obviously have some midweek action, which is gonna sway some things, I think, going on for the weekend action, right? Because St. Louis and LAFC are playing right now, and we still have a bunch of West Coast games that are going to go on tonight. But let's focus on the weekend and potentially, I guess, predicting some outcomes as well of what's going to happen midweek. But is there a weekend game that stands out to you that you're like, hell yeah, got to turn this on? You picked the game last weekend 100% with Portland Austin.
Yeah, I'm running. Let's do. Are we gonna do like a West Coast and an East Coast? Or
yeah, sure.
Because I'm looking at Minnesota versus St. Louis. I think Minnesota's home for that.
Yeah.
I think St. Louis up top of the conference currently, but has dealt with some injuries. I
think Minnesota's a dark horse MLS Cup candidate. Personally.
That's a good take. I wish I had that take, David.
Personally, I love it.
I wish I had that take. Honestly, I think that's a great take. But I think Minnesota. This is. We just talked about them, how they're sort of towards the bottom of the playoff spots. It's a big game for them. If they get those 3 points, it's massive. It almost solidifies them up there in that playing game at the moment. They could potentially catch San Jose and Salt Lake, but that'll be tough. I don't know. But yeah, that's probably my Western Conference game for sure.
I mean, if I have to pick an Eastern Conference game, there's not many great ones. I'm going to be honest with you right now. The best one is Sunday. It is Orlando hosting Miami, but now we have question marks.
I think I disagree slightly.
Okay.
Because
what's your Eastern?
That would be, right? If Messi, they're full strength 11s, I think I totally agree.
That's what I'm saying, yes.
Cincinnati versus Charlotte could be a good game. Because another team that it's kind of like the same argument I had with Vancouver versus St. Louis. It's a team that's sort of on the edge, playing the top team in their conference.
Fair.
It's sort of like it's now or never. Like
it's not up for shut
the
up
best
time
you can
Charlotte.
play.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that one's even tough because Cincinnati's home for that. But it's kind of like play the best you can play because you got to leave it all out there with every game now. These teams are solidly in. Cincinnati especially is solidified the number one spot, not on like mathematically, but basically.
Pretty much, yeah. They're gonna win the Supporter Shield. Let's just be honest and say
unless barring some insane collapse and insane results from someone else. But yeah, I would say that game has a chance to be really good just from the standpoint that again it's like a team that's really going to be fighting versus the bar of the conference.
I agree. I think personally, look, if I'm watching any game though, like it doesn't fall in our category of East-West because it is one of the two mixed games for the weekend, but it's the MLS Cup rematch. It's Philly Union hosting LAFC. That's a fun game. And even the other mixed conference game, Dallas hosting Columbus, like Dallas, like I said, I personally think are a good team. I think injuries have kind of shit on them a little bit. And I think Columbus they're also in that Atlanta United spot for me of trying to push to say, like, are we true MLS Cup contenders? Are we up there with Cincinnati in the East? Or are we, the best of the rest type of deal? So I think it'll be interesting to see Columbus really playing these teams that have a lot to fight for and play for. So
I think there's some not great games, but the four we mentioned are like sort of must watches.
100%. I would say there's other games that obviously impact playoff scenarios, and there's going to be games tonight that are going to finish and probably contradict some of the things we're going to say for this weekend. But it is what it is.
One that I now just noticed, and I'm kind of pissed I didn't choose, is Salt Lake versus Vancouver.
Ooh, that's
1 point separates those two teams, and we just spent a while talking about Vancouver and how we feel about them. I think that has a chance to be another good. So, you know what? It's actually a pretty good match week.
And you know, it's a perfect way to finish this episode that Houston right now are sitting in third place, getting close to my second place prediction. I love it. Jason, I love this episode as well. Appreciate you, and I appreciate everyone for listening to this. If you haven't already,
Look at that
subscribe
timing.
to the podcast, subscribe to us on YouTube or whatever. Follow us on social media, and we'll be back next week to chat about the weekend games and look ahead to some U.S. Open Cup action as well. So see you, everyone. Good night.
See you.